I'm on a ferry. This is the New York Waterway, Midtown to Port Imperial route, because today we are exploring the ferries of the Hudson River, their history, and the railroad history that is linked with them. So without any further ado, let's head across the river to Port Imperial, and I will see you there. But first, history! As we cross the river on the New York Waterway ferry, here's a bit of history about what's now Port Imperial. Opened in 1884, Weehawken Terminal was one of 5 railroad terminals along the west shore of the Hudson near New York City. Before the era of railroad tunnels, terminals were built across the river and ferries connected them. Weehawken Terminal was used by the West Shore and then later the New York Central Railroads, as well as the New York, Ontario, and Western Railroad. In addition to the terminal, it was also the site of massive rail yards along the entire Weehawken waterfront. Throughout the early 20th century, Weehawken Terminal and its ferry thrived, even with the opening of tunnels under the Hudson River and Penn Station in New York in 1910. However, by the 1950s, things were looking down across the country for railroads. By 1959, the New York Central was in bad financial state, and on March 25th, 1959, at 1:10 a.m., the last ferry, a steamboat called Weehawken, pulled in to the terminal for the last time. Until the 1980s, there was no hope of any ferry service returning. However, in 1981, Arthur Edward Impetory Sr., a businessman and trucking magnate, bought 2.5 miles of former railroad yard territory along the Weehawken waterfront and started a ferry service to Midtown. This company became New York Waterway. So that's the history of Weehawken Terminal. Now let's cut to me about to get off the ferry at Port Imperial. Okay, that was a nice scenic crossing. Welcome to the gangway bridge at Port Imperial, because for some reason the ferry dock is really set back from the shore. This of course used to be the Weehawken Terminal and Yard, and the Weehawken Ferry, except for a short period from 1959 to 1986, has been continuously in operation, and even as early as the 1800s. I'll put the exact date on screen. It was running to Midtown at a pier that is just north of where the current Midtown New York Waterway terminal is. There are very few remnants left of the Weehawken yards, except for, of course, this intermodal ferry terminal. However, there is one, so I'll see you there. So this, just over there, is the Weehawken Tunnel, which was built in 1886 by the West Shore Railroad, later taken over by the the New York Central, which operated it. Then the rail yard was closed in the late 50s, but the Hudson and Light Rail reused it, and when they were building this northern section in 2006. And it is now in use, which is cool because it's like 130 years old. It's a combo of new infrastructure, the light rail, and old. But, had Port Imperial. It's a story of a rail yard turned really high-end development, and it has ferry history. But next, we're going to head down to Hoboken Terminal, which also has quite a bit of ferry history. But first, let's go buy a light rail ticket and ka-chunk it. If you haven't ridden NJT, you are very confused right now. So the light rail tickets have to be validated before you can use them, and they make a funny sound, and that's why I call them ka-chunking. And I have now validated. While I ride the light rail down to Hoboken, a bit of history about the terminal itself. The terminal originally opened in 1876, however the building was not built until 1907. Built in a Beaux Arts style by the architect Kenneth M. Murchison, the terminal was an intermodal station between rail lines coming in from western New Jersey and Pennsylvania, ferries to New York, and the streetcars running around Hudson County.
It was originally operated by the Morris and Essex Railroad, which was leased by the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad, and it continued this way until 1960, when the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western merged with the Erie to become the Erie-Lackawanna. Not much info is online about ferry service to and from Hoboken. However, a map from 1879 shows ferry service to what is now Christopher Street in the West Village and Barclay Street in what is now the Financial District. Ferry service probably stopped sometime in the 1960s, and then was reactivated by New York Waterway in 1989. So with that cool history out of the way, let's cut to me at
Alright, welcome to Hoboken Terminal, featuring the Lackawanna Clock Tower. This is the only Hudson rail terminal thingy that's still in use, and one of only two that has mostly, intact structures. The other one being Communipaw, which I can see, but you will see later. Oh wait, no, I can't see it. Anyhow, so this station, being a Hudson River rail terminal, was also a hub for ferry service. As you heard in the history section while I was on the train, there were actually multiple ferries to Manhattan here. There's one to Christopher Street, there's one to downtown, I think it was Liberty Street, but I'll read a text box if I'm wrong. And I think that there's one to Midtown. This is the interior of Hoboken Terminal. It is very ornate. As far as it looks, mostly original. Of course, above us is the clock tower, which you saw, and I'll put a picture of up now. I bought 2 ferry tickets. So first we're going to use this one from Hobo-So to BPT. Hoboken South, because there is a Hoboken North ferry dock. And then, as you see, we're going to also recreate the journey of passengers going to the Pennsylvania Railroad ferry dock, which was at Exchange Place, which is now a ferry that is very weirdly operated by Goldman Sachs. So, the ferry terminal looks quite empty, so I think I'm just going to enjoy the beauty of Hoboken itself until my ferry comes. So yeah, I will see you on the ferry. I'm on the boat, but this is a FOMO moment. We are leaving from the original terminal. I thought it was, and it appears that I was right, because this looks quite
Bow Art
to me. I do think the ferry docks are original, of course, but the actual structure is, so that's cool. And yeah, we now head down there. So see you there.
The Pennsylvania Railroad was one of the largest and arguably the most influential railroad in the Northeast during the 19th century. Before revolutionizing rail transport by building tunnels under the Hudson River into New York City, their terminal was Exchange Place in Jersey City. Before trains were even a thing, in July of 1764, a ferry began operation from Paulus Hook to what is now Cortlandt Street in Lower Manhattan. That ferry became a steam service in 1812, becoming the first steam ferry in the entire world, and in 1834, the Pennsylvania Railroad opened their terminal at Exchange Place. In 1910, when the North River tunnels and Penn Station opened, ferries started to fall into disuse. Exchange Place lost most of its importance throughout the early 20th century, and in 1961, it closed. Ferry service had already ended in 1949. In the 1990s, New York Waterway reactivated ferries between Paulus Hook and Brookfield Place, and in 2013, new ferries were bought, operated by Goldman Sachs, whose main headquarters is next to the Paulus Hook Ferry Terminal in Jersey City. So now, let's cut to me at Brookfield Place.
This is the Goldman Sachs boat, sitting with what it's mainly being used for. It is couches. Yeah, they're couches on the boat. But for the views, we're gonna head into the top deck. I was very struck by those couches. The top deck seems to be basically just a small bench. Couches on a boat, though. Only the Goldman Sachs. So, welcome to Paulus Hook. We're in the heart of downtown Jersey City. Would you believe me if I used to tell you that these skyscrapers used to be a rail yard? Well, they were Exchange Place, as you heard in the history section. Paulus Hook is a weird ferry terminal. It has really short little bumper stop thingies. That boat was so weird. Anywho, Paulus Hook and seagulls. However, another reason we're here, that is Communipol, which, as you heard, was the terminal for the Central Railroad of New Jersey and Baltimore and Ohio. It is also a really cool place to go, but it's really hard to get to. It's a 20-minute walk through Liberty State Park, and that is, the sun is setting, so it'll be in the dark. So yeah, I'm gonna go buy my ticket for the ferry back to Midtown. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll do an outro shot on that ferry. Bye. It's an old boat, so it's gonna be really hard to hear me, but I'm on the